Yes, even for Arizona. So when you start to look into foot care nursing for your state, oftentimes what we do as nurses is we start Googling. We Google our board of nursing, and then we go into our board of nursing and we try to find foot care lingo telling us that we can build a business around it. And oftentimes you can't find that because it doesn't exist, because a lot of these boards of nursing don't have any restrictions created around foot care nursing. And so Arizona is one that does have it. And so what I would tell you is to go and look it up and read it over. This is what it's going to look like. But I want you to pay particular attention to that box. So in that box, it says an advisory opinion adopted by the Arizona Board of Nursing is an interpretation of what the law requires. While an advisory opinion is not law, it is more than a recommendation. In other words, an advisory opinion is an official opinion of the Arizona Board of Nursing regarding the practice of nursing as it relates to the functions of nursing. Facility policies may restrict practice further in their setting and or require additional expectations related to the competency, validation, training, and supervision to assure the safety of the patient population and or decrease risk. What does that mean? That means it is not the law, but it is their opinion, what they have listed here. That's all it means, okay? And so it is up to you now as the nurse to interpret what that means. Now, it has on here, it is within the scope of practice for a registered nurse to perform foot care on patients with high risk, significant complications based on the patient assessment level of nursing as delineated below. And it goes into basic foot care, intermediate foot care, and advanced foot care. And it also talks about RNs and LPNs. Typically, the way I read this is that LPNs should not be doing foot care independently. Okay, and you have to understand when they wrote this up, they're thinking hospital. They're not thinking businesses, they're thinking hospital systems. But it basically, in most states, LPNs are an dependent license on an RN. So to read this as I read it, I would say an LPN should not be doing this independently in the state of Arizona. So when you start to read into all of these, you have to understand what you're reading, and you have to decide what is going to be best for you and your business, okay? And so the Board of Nursing is not going to say yes or no, you can start a business with anything, beyond foot care, anything. That's not their job. Their job is to protect the public. So when you're building your business, you have to critically think about what it is that you're doing in your business, how could it harm patients, and what are you going to do to prevent that harm from occurring. Think about that when you're building your business, okay? One of the things that I was taught years ago, 15 years ago when I started my foot care business, I was taught how to use a scalpel to reduce corns and calluses. Did I come back to my state and put that in my business practice just because I was taught how to do that? No. Why? Because I didn't feel that that was an appropriate measure within my scope of practice to add that into the business. So I did not choose to scalpel corns and calluses. Are people doing that out there in the world? Perhaps. I don't know, but I don't teach it in my business, and I didn't do it in my business, and I don't teach anything that I didn't do in my business to other people. So that was one of the things that I felt like it was considered sharp wound debridement, and that goes into a whole other lane of practice that I felt that I was not protected within the Board of Nursing to be doing independently out here. So I chose not to put that in my business. That's the way you have to think about this stuff. What are you going to put into your business? And this is why it is good to have mentors who have been down these paths and have been in these businesses for many years, who have met with the Board of Nursing like I have, and they know what the Board of Nursing is going to ask you when they talk about your business. They know what, things you should have implemented in your business to safeguard your patients, because the Board of Nursing is here to protect patients. When you're building your business, think about the patients and how to protect them, as well as protect yourself in the business. So yes, in Arizona, nurses are doing foot care. RNs, yes, for sure. LPNs, I'm not sure of. I don't know. I try to teach to RNs and above with licensures just to safeguard them and to safeguard myself. But as far as nurses doing businesses, as foot care businesses, yes, they do.